All right, we're on the Spirit Talk with my special guest, John Paul Greschak. John, what do you know?
We're speaking of the second coming of Jesus coming in the year 2044, and very specific on that. At the time 2:59 p.m., when is that time in the place where he died, 1 minute before the time he died, which was 3 p.m. That was on April 3rd in the year 30. All that I'm telling you is by revelation, not reasoning or calculation or analysis of data. Now that's a point of reference there, the second coming of Jesus. The day after that, May 8th in that year 2044, you have the coming of Saint Michael the Archangel. Now what we have occurring beginning through a 7-week period that begins on the first day of which is the second coming of Jesus, you're going to have the wrath of God coming at that point, and this is for all the people who were not taken to heaven just before Jesus came. Now, when I say just before, a minute and 49 seconds before Jesus comes at 2:59 p.m., and so that would be at 2:57 and 11 seconds p.m. on May 7th, 2044, is the time that everyone needs to be ready, because that is the time when those men who are to be brought to heaven shall be assumed and brought to heaven. Now, this is just before Jesus comes. So that's really the goal time that people need to shoot for, to be prepared. When Jesus comes, it's too late. The end of that 7-week period comes. The final day is on June 24th of the same year, 2044, and that is referred to as the death of man. On that day, there are no more men living here on earth. 2 days after that is the day of judgment. That's June 26th in 2044. And the following day, June 27th, 2044, is the resurrection of men. At that point, you'll have men, all men being resurrected, but only those in heaven brought into a state of eternal life. Those in hell would be in a state that our Father refers to as perpetual dying. I say our Father because all these revelations are coming directly from the Creator, our Father, that one person of the Trinity.
Okay, John, that's the end, isn't it?
Yeah, that takes us right to the resurrection. There's some times before that are of importance, because there's an important sign of the cross in the sky just 4 days before Jesus comes. It is at 10:22 a.m. on that day, May 3rd. It is the last sign for people to change their minds about whether we were right, as here Saints John Paul and Birth of the Witnesses, as our Father refers to us. The two witnesses of Apocalypse 11.3, that is Revelation 11.3, is his two witnesses who are here to tell all this to everyone.
Okay, John, I met you down at Ground Zero this year, 9/11, and you were down at the memorial. I think we came down there for different reasons, maybe, but what led you down there to speak out? Because I saw you on the street, and you had people that were listening to you. What led you down there to speak out?
Well, as you say, you're right. We were led down to different reasons to the exact same place, though, so I'm sure that we could meet that day. But why I was led down there was to, with my wife, come out of the subway there where you were stationed on Church Street outside the World Trade Center, and raise the question and pass out a flyer of what the statement was: 9/11. Why? God knows, and so do I. John Paul 1:16. John Paul 1:16 refers to a verse in our in a book that has been revealed to us, which is being put forward by our Father as a new book to the Bible. And I just have to say that before I got involved in this project, I was not a Bible reader. I was raised a Catholic and went to church every week with my dad. but all the way through from when I was the littlest boy to through high school, I went to church and heard the gospel reading. But I never sat at home and read the Bible. I was not. I was brought up in a science education, and it's a very non-religious type environment in the academic world, where I was taught at SUNY at Buffalo and then MIT later in the engineering schools. I didn't get exposed much to any religion in academia, and it was outside of my life. But no, when we come to February 2nd last year, I'm in a position of having experienced great difficulty in trying to sell a family home that my brother and I owned after my mother's passing. And what we found is that, I found on the front lines of trying to sell this house was the shock at how people behave towards other people. I was sort of insulated from that sort of thing. I hadn't worked for a number of years. I retired from working in New York City in 1997 and tried to survive off investments while I was doing creative work and putting it in the public domain. And here I was suddenly trying to sell a home in a very cutthroat type real estate environment. I was just surprised at the rudeness, the disrespect that I got from people involved in trying to buy this house. And so I am at February 2nd, the turning point for me. I'm standing in my kitchen, and suddenly I ask God, is this the end times? And the response I get from God is a gestural response, which in words is, what do you think? What does it look like to you? And my response to that was, well, it looks pretty bad, is what it looks like.
I think you share that feeling with just about everybody, whether they want to admit it or not. Everybody knows that this is going to end in disaster. And
that's something that resonates. We've talked to many people about what we've been doing, and when I say, hasn't it changed a lot since you were a kid? And if they're around our age, we're 54 of them, been born in 1959, both of us. My wife on June 22nd, myself on September 6th. We say, we've seen a lot of changes happen in this world in that time, and not for the good, not for good. And older people that are older than us see it even worse.
Yeah, it is. Every generation sees it decline. Now,
It's rapid, yeah.
and so after you started having these revelations in your kitchen of all places, which it always happens in the most common place. And under the most common conditions. That's what a lot of people don't understand, is that God speaks to you in your everyday life, and you better, if you're listening, you're going to hear him. So go on with telling me how you got into this design of time and the numbers.
Well, from that point, I wasn't overly interested in the topic. It's just something that came to my mind based on my experience with this real estate deal. But a few days went by, and my wife raised the question of, because I had spoken to her about this interaction that I had with God, and she wondered, so when would it be if it's when would this happen if we're at the end of time? Are we talking about how many years out? How close are we? And so I said, well, I'll think about this. I thought about this for almost no time. And convinced myself that I'd come up with the answer myself, but I later know that it was revealed to me. And the answer I came up with was 35 to 50 years. I later told my wife, and she said, 35 years, where did you come up with such a specific number as that? And I said, well, I'm an engineer. I know about system theory and the decay of systems, and I've lived here for 50 years. Plus, I can see how things are going and kind of estimate where it's going to be dead if it keeps going the way it is at the rate that it's declining. But I had convinced myself that I had some sort of sense of this, but I had no sense at all. Truly, it was a number that was handed to me by God. And then it sat, again, not too interested. Some days go by, and I'm lying in bed. Finally, the thought is put in my head by God to have me calculate when would this be, because I hadn't even done that. I figured 35 years, good enough. I know enough, but no, he has me calculate when would that be. And so it was at that time 2012, and still in February last year. And I added the 35 to the 2012, and I got 2047, which I immediately recognized as something near a power of 2. That is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, etc., until you get to the number 2048, which is one more than that 2047 that I got. Well, okay, then that just sits. I do nothing with it. However, at the same time, because I had been starting to talk about this end time scenario with my wife, she was starting to read Daniel. And she had come to me and said, I've been reading chapter 12 here, and I don't understand. Daniel speaking about chapter 12, where certain periods of time are going to happen. She's got 1,260 days and 1,290 days and 1335 days at the end of chapter 12 in Daniel. And within Daniel, there's a mention of a time, 2 times, or a half a time. In some translations, you'll see it written as a year, 2 years, or half a year. And as I sit here looking at the Douay Rem Bible, which is the Bible that I've been asked to focus on by our Father, an old Catholic Bible, in other words, what was used before 1940 for a couple hundred years in the Roman Catholic Church, it says that it should be unto a time and times and half a time is the way they write it there. Yeah. So I saw 1, 2, and number half. I saw that sequence of those 3 numbers, and I recognized those as a doubling. Half is double to 1, and 1 is double to 2, though they're not in that order. And you have 1, 2, and a half is the order that they were in. And at that moment, that was a pivotal moment for me. That's when our Father piqued my interest, when he brought that to my attention by having my wife read that and giving me the thought quickly that there's structure there. Once I saw there is structure here to this design of time, I said to myself, with the help of God, a thought coming into mind, perhaps there's something interesting to do here in this area. Ever with a nose for, something to spend my time with.
Tell us about how the book came into being in such a short time, really, because books don't come together like that very easy, do they?
No, it's quite a different process here in doing this than one would normally do, and every day is like that for me. Instead of planning my days, they just happen, and I'm guided through them. So, there's a lot of me following the leader through this, and they even in writing any letter that I now write, I don't have to sit down and plan where this letter is going. It just we write one sentence at a time. To understand how this book was written. It was written over a very short period of time in December of last year. I believe the very last days of November and into the middle of December is exactly when it was. Basically, 1 chapter a night, except one of the chapters was quite a bit longer, called The Church, which is chapter 3. Took at least 3 nights to do, being that it's about 3 times the length of the other chapters. So the first chapter is Jesus, the second chapter is Mary, the third chapter is the Church, and so on through 12 chapters. The first chapter, once we established the outline and the order of these chapters, we began to write after a brief time of doing some work with our Father revealing to us genealogy and relations to us to very early great Christians.
So you have some stunning content in this book, and you're coming at this from an engineering and numerical aspect almost, aren't you?
Yeah, an important aspect of this work is not to just dump these revelations on people. What our Father is trying to do with this is put down a great amount of evidence to support the fact that this revelation is legitimate, that it's coming from Him, and that it could only be coming from Him, and that we are who we say we are, and that what we say is the truth. He has His hand in everything. People have to understand, in everything. It's thorough, and what He has done it will be to the surprise of Satan. What he has done is assembled throughout our world and throughout events in our societies a tremendous amount of ready-made evidence, because he has scheduled things in certain ways. He has dictated certain events would happen to certain people that were born on certain days, and all kinds of evidence that we have. What he's done is, in this book, in chapter 12, provided an extensive, comprehensive, and complete numerical language of God that comes in conjunction with this revelation. That speaks, for example, I'll run through some numbers. 6 is the love of God. 12 is a man perfected and united with God. 24 is a man and his neighbor perfected and united with God. 13 is Jesus. 26, which is 2 13s, is the second coming of Jesus. Every single number, from 0 through 100 and on up. We don't have every 4-digit number written down at this point, but he may be headed there. We just gradually fill in the chart.
And you are. How was this system developed? Where did this come from? Did this come from you?
No. This is something that's been revealed incrementally to me ever since we began this process. This project. The first, I believe, was probably the number 12 as being 6 plus 6. The love of God as being 6, and 6, the love of God returned by a man who's perfected and united with God. Perhaps the most fundamental thing in our message that we bring to man here is to return the love of God. No shorter way of saying it than that. Completely love God and completely love your neighbor, and you're in.
Yeah, that is the way you get in. I mean, that's when the wise man asked Christ, what do I got to do to get into heaven? And that's what he told him.
That's right. You're.
When the rich man asked him, he told him to go sell everything, and the guy couldn't do it because he didn't even get to the question of, because he knew the guy had a money problem. So he didn't tell him to throw him the pearls. The other guy was sincere, and he told him the truth. So, I mean, Christ addresses the need that you have.
Yep.
That's excellent. Now, we're talking theology here because I was drawn down there when I heard you talking, and I heard the words that Jesus was just a man. Now, how did this goes against pretty much Christian theology nowadays that has deified Christ in that he was God on earth. And you're saying he's not. That's what really caught my ear when you were down at 9/11, because that was revealed to me in my childhood. And so that really resonated with me. Tell me about that and how that all came about. And go ahead.
Yeah, well, I spent the summer last year. Many things were being revealed to us along this timeline that we had already spoke about May 7th, 2044, and many other things were being revealed to us. But it was not until we began to write the book, and we began to write the chapter on Jesus, as in just the day before we put down that chapter, that while I was outside hauling some wood home for our wood stove from the woods, I'm starting to get these thoughts into my head that what our Father is going to be writing when we get to this chapter is that Jesus began as every other soul, as you and I, and was not eternally part of the Trinity.
How do you feel about organized religion nowadays, and how do you think they would accept something like the fact that a lot of people, not just me and you maybe, think that Christ was a man?
Well, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. Let's give you some of the we've been to the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, this is the first place we went. July 3rd last year, before anyone except perhaps my brother and mother-in-law and my wife and I were the only ones that knew what was going on when we went to the Roman Catholic Church and approached them on July 3rd last year and told them that we're engaged in a pretty serious project right now. And by that time, July 3rd, it had already been revealed to us on June 7th, before that, the date of the second coming, the date of judgment, and the date of the resurrection of men, as well as many other things in the month that occurred in June.
So you've informed the Pope.
We've been there and done that, and we've done it more than once. In fact, we did it several ways. We did it directly by going to priests in Penn Yan, New York, who were called out by God that these were men that we were supposed to visit, and we told them. We have told the bishop's office in Albany, New York. We've met with the secretary of the Bishop of Albany, Bishop Hubbard. We've presented messages to the Cardinal Dolan in New York City, though we haven't sat down and talked with him. We have sent direct FedEx mails as of August 13th, just passed. We sent to both Pope Benedict Emeritus and Pope Francis I separate FedEx packages at great cost to us, by the way, to express a copy of the current draft of the book, as well as a 7-page letter that enumerated many revelations to us about wrongdoing of the church in keeping revelations away from men. That would be greatly helpful. In particular, the revelation concerning man, that Jesus was, is, and forever shall be a man. This was a revelation given to the church in 1917 when Mary visited 3 children 6 times in Fatima, Portugal. Now, this was a revelation that was given to two of the children, 2 girls, Jacinta and Lucia, and ultimately it was transmitted to the Pope. And in the 1950s, the Pope was Pope Pius XII, and we have presented a statement that this Pope was murdered because of the fact that he was going to reveal what Mary had revealed to these children, which was that Joseph was the natural father of Jesus, though Mary, I should interject, that Mary was a virgin, and that fulfilled the prophecy that was necessary from Isaiah, that Jesus be born of a virgin. Yet, the substance of which Jesus was formed was from Mary, his mother, his natural mother, and Joseph, his natural father, not foster father. And that is from what Jesus was formed as a man, as we all are, except the conception was a miraculous conception effected by God with the assistance of the Holy Spirit. Now, this is at least the statement. Joseph is the natural father of Jesus, and Jesus was just a man when he was here, was communicated to these children, and it was in turn communicated to the church. And the church has known about this, and they were to make it public on January 1st, 1960, and they did not. And that is a big problem, because had men been told of this, they would be in a much better position to see Jesus for what he is, as a man who is a great model of achievement.
Oh, the greatest prophet of all time.
And an achievement to ascend into divinity.
Because a prophet, what is a prophet? I mean, the prophet is literally a spokesman for God.
Exactly.
So you're a prophet, I'm a prophet.
Yeah.
Anyone who speaks the truth about God is a prophet.
We all have a piece to share. Exactly.
Everyone has a piece of the puzzle, my friend.
Everyone that's listening. This is a big point, that the church has not revealed what God has revealed to the church, that they kept this secret. And when we wrote our letter to the, I think I'll read this statement, because God gave it to us really clearly, and this was given to the Pope. This was actually written down on the page I'm looking at on August 3rd, just passed, but it was sent, I believe, on the 13th by FedEx, so they didn't get it until the 19th. And we can show tracking numbers ultimately for this to verify that this all happened and it was received there at the Vatican. Let me just read this statement, because it's very well said, and I could not do a better job by roaming around about it. So give me a second and I'll read this for you, Rick, about what we said about the dogma.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the dogma of the Church concerning the natures of Jesus and Mary, which holds that Jesus was a person of God before his ascension and Mary was perfected before her birth, ought persist no longer, for the Father has revealed it to be false. A design of Satan, this erroneous dogma has subverted the plan of God for man, that being to have every soul become perfected and united with God, and to have every soul brought to the kingdom of heaven. It casts Jesus and Mary as being more than a man, and thereby compromises the passion of Jesus as a force against Satan, as it belies the possibility for sympathetic sufferings equal to the sufferings of Jesus and Mary. It denies the fact that Jesus and Mary became perfected and united with God, and thereby deprives men of their supreme examples of achievement that are to be followed. It casts each man as disadvantaged relative to Jesus and Mary, thereby equipping each man with a ready-made excuse for why he does not follow completely the teachings of Jesus. And being inconsistent with the Holy Bible, it has caused most men to remain outside the church. As it is, the objective of the plan of God for men is grotesquely far from being achieved. If today were the day of judgment, billions of souls would be brought to hell. That's the statement of God to both Pope Francis and Pope Emeritus Benedict, who I would tell you through revelation is actually supportive of the church, the latter, being looking into this. And the reason we are told for his resignation was our book got to the desk of him in January through the Ukrainian church, a backdoor route that God gave us, and his opinion was that this should be looked at. But the cardinals refused, and he stepped away by God's agreement that he step away. Now we have a new pope, and he has this information as well. It's been sent to him, and we have been completely ignored by the Roman Catholic Church. Not to say we're surprised. They have their position. We
This new pope,
Muslims and Jews as well. Okay,
yeah,
but
this new pope, my friend, I felt right from this. This is a political appointment. This pope was purely political.
well,
He fits right in with the New World Order and these evil people.
Well, I'll tell you, this pope is going to have to face this because God reveals to us the correct numbering of popes. The church skips to.
Is this the last pope?
There is one more after this before Jesus is the 270th, the eternal pope. But there's one pope that's the 269th. Now, understand the numbers I'm giving you is not what the church would tell you the number of the pope is, because they skipped two popes. They got rid of one of the popes from around the year 100. And it is my understanding it's because if you went back there and saw what he believed, he would be agreeing with you and I about the nature of Jesus. So he's
that was
away from the history books.
That was the major split in Christianity at the Nicaea Council.
Yes.
And that was in 325 AD, and that's really where the universal, which is
right.
Catholic, it means universal, religion was established by the Romans.
When you go back earlier, there's much more dispute, and it's much more fluid about what people believe.
Yes.
Believe the people that
Absolutely.
say.
And then they went about destroying all of the doctrine associated with that. And so the main proprietors of that doctrine that Jesus was a man were the people called the Gnostics. And they were murdered. They just executed them all.
It was that's what it was, a power struggle,
and so but
the truth lost on that one.
Yeah, so it went underground, but the truth is never lost, is it? No. In relating to this subject, don't you think that all them people in Hollywood, and don't you think these evil people know that Jesus was just a man? They're telling everybody in these movies like the Da Vinci Code and all these different movies, they're more or less coming right out and just telling people, aren't they? Because the church now believes that Christ was God on earth. The real truth has been known for centuries, thousands. It's been known since he was alive. And there's been people carrying that truth ever since. And so the truth has never been gone. It's never been missing. It's just been hidden. But all things that are hidden are uncovered. So they've set the church up. The evil empire has set the church up because now when they make these movies and they don't come right out and present it in a manner like you do, that's biblical and that's godlike. They present it through the back door. And they do it in a way that's trying to destroy these people's faith. And I see that as our major struggle in trying to communicate, especially with Christians, this type of information or anything that's outside of the box of religious orthodoxy. That is the real problem. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah. there have been many things that have been done before this point to prepare for God's assault now, to defend against God's assault, things that have been put in place. About how many people have come forward and said they know when the end of time is? I couldn't imagine. I'm not an expert on knowing all the people that have declared that the end will be now, the end will be now, the end will be now. And when you have this sequence of crying wolf, you have us come along and tell you, no, this is when it's going to be, and you get people just with apathy at this point, saying, whatever, I don't care. And it goes in the theological side too. For every person that comes up with a bad
because
argument,
see, what I was trying to equate there was that when you tell somebody that, well, Jesus was a man, read your Bible and listen to the Holy Spirit speak to you, they'll say, now you're just like them Hollywood people.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. That now it makes strange bedfellows. We're telling people the same thing these people in Hollywood are saying. But they're laughing. What they're trying to do is destroy their church with the truth, which is just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so backwards the way things work. And just, we really need to, you and me, brother, and everybody else that, is really outside of the mainstream thought, are just the beginning of the revelations, I think, and the people that are going to step forward. John Paul Greschak, I really thank you for being my guest tonight. It's been a pleasure, man. We're going to have to talk some more because I think it will be it'll be demanded that we talk more.
There's going to be, this is an ongoing revelation.
Absolutely, but there's so many things we can talk about, my friend, that
and it just keeps growing, as you say. The revelation keeps coming. So
and we all have things to donate to each other, but there's something greater at work, and I think maybe just getting God back into the conversation is, man, that's a major part of the thing. I mean, we just spent 2 hours just straight just talking about God. Now and to me, I'm excited. Dude, I'm energized. Yeah. Now, how does that happen? You know what I mean? Am I just crazy? I mean, that's what people think about people that live in the Spirit, because that's the type of thing that I live for, brother. And I really appreciate, just who you are. And we're going to talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.